I am Elena Moore, and I was 29 years old when I came home from a night shift and realized my family had crossed a line they could never undo. Before I go any further, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Stories like this reach people who are silently carrying pain, people who keep giving until there's nothing left. If this story finds you, maybe it's because you need to hear it. That morning, the sun was just beginning to rise over Briarwood Estate, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pale blue. I had just finished a 12-hour shift at Riverside General Hospital, one of those shifts where everything hurts, your feet, your back, even your thoughts. I hadn't eaten since midnight. All I wanted was a hot shower and sleep so deep I wouldn't dream. I stepped out of the hospital shuttle and walked up the driveway on autopilot, keys already in my hand. But halfway there, my body stopped before my mind could catch up. The driveway was empty. The space where my blue Honda Civic always sat, perfectly aligned beside the flower bed, was completely bare. No tire marks. No shadow. Nothing. I blinked once. Then again. No, I whispered to myself. That's not right. I walked closer, my heart starting to beat faster. Maybe I parked it on the street. Maybe I was too tired and forgot. But I knew the truth even as I tried to deny it. I never parked anywhere else. That car was too important to me. I had worked double shifts for it, missed birthdays, skipped vacations. While others my age were traveling or buying new clothes, I was saving every spare dollar. That car wasn't luxury, it was freedom. My chest tightened as I turned toward the house. On the porch, my parents, Clara and Dennis Moore, sat side by side, teacups in hand, wrapped in blankets like it was just another calm, ordinary morning. The sight of them sitting there so peacefully made my stomach twist. "Mom," I said slowly. "Dad." They both looked up. "Where's my car?" Clara took a small sip of her tea before answering, like I had asked something as harmless as what was for breakfast. "Oh, we sold it, sweetheart," she said. "You barely use it anyway. And your brother needed money for school." The words didn't register at first. "You sold it," I repeated. Dennis folded his newspaper carefully and looked at me over his glasses. "Family comes first, Elena," he said firmly. "You should understand that by now." Something cold slid down my spine. I stood there in my scrubs, exhaustion forgotten, staring at the two people I had spent my entire life trying to please. They weren't apologetic. They weren't nervous. They weren't even pretending to feel bad. "You sold my car," I said again, slower this time. "The car I paid for." Clara waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be dramatic. You live under our roof. Everything you have is because of this family." That was when I felt it. Not anger. Not tears. A quiet, terrifying clarity. I had never truly owned anything in their eyes. Not my money, not my time, not even my independence. "Then maybe family shouldn't come first anymore," I said quietly. The air shifted instantly. Clara's smile vanished. Dennis frowned deeply. But I didn't wait to hear what they'd say next. I walked inside, my hands trembling, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Standing in that silent hallway, I finally admitted the truth I had avoided my entire life. If I kept letting them, they would take everything from me. I had always been the responsible one. The peacemaker. When my parents argued, I stepped in. When my younger brother Ethan got into trouble, I covered for him. He was charming, careless, and endlessly forgiven. When he failed classes, they blamed stress. When I struggled, they blamed attitude. While studying nursing, I worked part-time jobs to help pay the mortgage. I handed over money every month without complaint. I believed being a good daughter meant sacrificing quietly. When I mentioned moving out, my mother said, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" And so I stayed. But that morning, staring at an empty driveway, something inside me finally broke, and something else began to rise. For the first time, I wondered what my life would look like if I stopped saving everyone else. The days after my car disappeared passed in a strange, heavy blur. On the surface, everything in the house went on as usual. My mother cooked dinner, my father watched television in the evenings, and my brother Ethan laughed loudly at jokes on his phone. But underneath that normal routine, something rotten had settled into the air. Every room felt tense, like a storm waiting to break. I barely spoke to anyone. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because I was afraid of what might come out if I opened my mouth. Years of swallowed anger have a way of turning into something sharp. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom. The pale cream walls, The same ones my grandmother had painted years ago, felt closer than ever, like they were pressing in on me. My mind replayed the moment on the porch again and again. My mother's casual voice, my father's cold certainty. Family comes first. I had given everything to that idea. And now I had nothing to show for it. Getting to work became harder without the car. I relied on hospital shuttles, borrowed rides, and long walks that left my legs aching before my shift even started. No one at home offered to help. Not once. It was as if selling my car had erased their responsibility to me completely. One evening, a few days later, I was in the kitchen washing dishes after dinner. The sound of running water helped drown out my thoughts, until I heard my father's voice from the living room. He was on the phone. At first, I didn't pay attention. He was always on the phone, always irritated about something. But then his tone changed. Lower. Sharper. Desperate. I told you I'd send the payment this week, he snapped. Just give me a few more days. My hands froze in the sink. Payment? I leaned slightly toward the doorway, my heart starting to race. I said I sold something important, he continued. The money's already gone. What more do you want from me? A cold wave washed over me. Sold something important. The call ended abruptly. I stood there, staring at the wall, my fingers numb. Suddenly, everything clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The car hadn't been sold for Ethan's tuition. It had been sold to cover my father's debts. That night, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. They were in the living room. My father stretched out on the couch, my mother scrolling through her phone like nothing in the world was wrong. Dad, I said, my voice shaking. I heard you on the phone earlier. He stiffened slightly but didn't look at me. The money from my car, I continued, my heart pounding. It didn't go to Ethan's school, did it? Silence. My mother sighed loudly and put her phone down. Elena, your father has been under a lot of stress lately. Don't make this about you. Those words hit harder than any slap ever could. Don't make this about you. You sold my car, I said, tears burning in my eyes. You lied to me. How could you do that? My father finally looked at me, his face hard. Watch your tone. You wouldn't even have that car if not for us. Something inside me snapped cleanly in two. No, I shouted. I worked for that car. I paid for it. You didn't help me buy it, I helped you. My mother stood up, crossing her arms. You're being ungrateful. Families help each other. I laughed, a broken sound that surprised even me. Then why does helping always mean I lose something? No one answered. My father turned away, furious. My mother stared at me like I was a stranger. I grabbed my bag and walked out before I said something I couldn't take back. My hands shook the entire time. I didn't know where to go. My feet carried me somewhere familiar without thinking. My grandmother's old study, tucked away in the back of the house. The room had been left untouched since she passed. The smell of old books and lavender still lingered, comforting and steady. I sat on the floor and cried harder than I had in years. When the tears finally slowed, I noticed one of the old filing cabinets slightly open. I don't know why, but I pulled it open and started flipping through the papers inside. Deeds, letters, documents yellowed with age. Then I saw it. A house deed. My breath caught as I read the names. Clara Moore. Dennis Moore. Elena Moore. My name. My hands began to shake violently. According to the document, my grandmother had left half of the house to me years ago. Legally. Officially. Undeniably. They had never told me. I sat there on the floor, staring at the paper, as realization crashed over me in waves. That was why they never wanted me to leave. Why every attempt at independence was met with guilt and manipulation. I didn't just live in their house. I owned part of it. That night, I barely slept. The next day at work, I was distant and distracted. My best friend Maya, another nurse, noticed immediately. You look like you haven't slept in a week, she said during break. What's going on? I hesitated, then told her everything. The car, the lies, the gambling, the deed. By the time I finished, Maya's eyes were wide. Elena, she said slowly, you own half that house. Why are you still letting them treat you like this? I shrugged weakly. Because I'm scared. Maya squeezed my hand. You can't heal in the place that keeps breaking you. Those words followed me home that evening. The silence in the house was heavier than ever. My parents barely acknowledged me. When they did, it was cold and distant. Ethan joked like nothing had happened. So, he said one night with a smirk, still mad about the car? I looked up at him calmly. Watch me. The smile slid off his face. That night, I sat on my bed staring at the deed again. The fear was still there, but beneath it was something new. Resolve. The next day, during lunch break, I began researching property laws. At night, I took notes, screenshots, questions. A week later, I met quietly with a real estate lawyer named Ms. Collins. After reviewing the documents, she looked at me and said words that changed everything. They can't stop you. For the first time in my life, I believed it. I began gathering every important document I could find: bank records, tax receipts, old letters from my grandmother. I hid them carefully, out of reach. At home, the tension grew unbearable. One night my mother said, "You've changed. You used to be so kind." "I'm still kind," I replied softly. "I'm just not blind anymore." That was the moment I stopped asking for permission in my own life. Late one night, when everyone else was asleep, I opened my laptop and filled out the first form. The first step toward listing the house for sale. My hands trembled, but I didn't stop. When the confirmation email arrived, I sat back and exhaled slowly. Everything was about to change. The morning the sign went up, I woke before my alarm. There was a strange calm in my chest, the kind that comes right before something irreversible happens. My hands were steady as I got dressed for work, though my heart thudded harder with every passing minute. I already knew what today would bring. I had imagined it 100 times. The yelling, the disbelief, the accusations. Still, knowing didn't make it easier. I left the house quietly and took the hospital shuttle as usual. At work, I moved through my shift like a ghost. I smiled at patients, checked vitals, followed routines, but my mind was elsewhere, somewhere between fear and freedom. When my shift finally ended, my phone buzzed with multiple missed calls. From my mother, from my father, from Ethan. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I walked home slowly, my heart pounding harder with every step. I could hear raised voices even before I reached the driveway. Then I saw it. A tall white sign planted firmly into the front lawn. House for sale. My mother's teacup shattered against the porch tiles as she spotted me. "What have you done?" she screamed, running toward me in her robe. "I did what you taught me," I said quietly. "Family comes first. And I'm family too." My father stormed out next, his face red with rage. "You can't do this, Elena. This is our home." "It's our home," I corrected calmly. "And half of it belongs to me." Ethan rushed outside, panic written all over his face. "You're insane. Where are we supposed to live?" "You should have thought about that before selling what wasn't yours," I replied. My mother grabbed my arm, tears spilling down her face. "Please don't do this. We can fix this. We're family." I gently pulled away. "You didn't want to fix anything until you lost control." My father stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You think you're powerful now because of a few papers? You wouldn't even have a roof over your head if not for us." I met his eyes without flinching. "That roof came from my grandmother. Not you." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the yelling started. Selfish. Ungrateful. Heartless. I didn't respond. I walked back inside the house for the last time. Each room felt different now, lighter, smaller, like memories instead of walls. I packed only what mattered. At the kitchen table, I placed the house keys down gently. "I'm done living in a house built on guilt," I said softly. My father shouted after me. My mother sobbed. Ethan paced furiously. I didn't turn around. Outside, my friend Maya waited in a borrowed car. When I got in, my hands shook for the first time that day. As we pulled away, I looked back once. They stood on the porch, shouting, but their voices faded as the distance grew. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel trapped. The sale went through weeks later. The money from my share was deposited directly into my account. I didn't tell anyone how much it was. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I donated part of it anonymously to a nursing scholarship in my grandmother's name. Rose Moore, the woman who quietly gave me strength when I didn't know I needed it. When I clicked submit, a tear slid down my cheek, not from sadness but relief. Months later, I moved into a small apartment by the coast. Nothing fancy, just quiet mornings and open windows. The sound of waves became my new alarm clock. I still worked at the hospital, but I had changed. I volunteered at a community center that helped women escape toxic homes. Sometimes I talked. Sometimes I just listened. Helping them helped me heal. One afternoon, Maya visited with iced coffee. "You're glowing," she said. "Peace looks good on you." Later that day, I found a letter by my door. It was from Ethan. "Mom still blames you. Dad's drinking more. We had to move into a rental. Things aren't the same, but you were the only one who ever told the truth." I folded the letter and placed it beside my grandmother's photo. At sunrise the next morning, my phone buzzed again. "I sold Dad's car today," Ethan wrote. "Guess it runs in the family." I smiled, a soft, bittersweet smile. Sometimes you have to lose everything you love to find peace. Sometimes the only way to be free is to stop asking for permission. As the sun climbed higher, warming my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Calm. Safety. Belonging to myself. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Stories like this remind us that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. See you in the next one.